All right, hello everyone. So let's talk a little bit about the VMPI interview for the University of Toronto Medical School. I will share my screen here. Okay, so this is a quick presentation. Hopefully, we will try to cover some of the important things, but as you can tell, there's a lot to cover. And if this video is too long, nobody will watch it. So this video will focus on the main points, and hopefully there is more videos that are part of a series, but this is just the first part. Okay, so let's start with the structure. Everyone knows the structure. It's still important to say it. So there's four stations, 3 minutes to prepare for each station. So they will give you the questions, and then there's 3 minutes to think, and then there's 5 minutes to answer. Now, the fact is that it's a 5 minute. This means you have such a short time, and you want to try to say as much as you can in those 5 minutes. Not taking is allowed, based on my research. And it's an asynchronous structure. So you'll be talking, there will not be a person in front of you, but it will be recorded and then it will be graded somehow. And then some questions could have multiple parts. So it will ask a question and then another question, but there is no follow-up. So once you see whatever you see at the start is whatever you see, there will not be more questions that come afterward. So let's start by talking about why it's confusing for a lot of people. The reason why it's confusing is because no one knows what is a good answer, what's a bad answer, what's even an excellent answer. No one knows how you get marked. And we all are guessing here. And it's very important that you take everything anyone says, including myself, with a grain of salt. What we do here is our best educated guess. What we do here is we try to use our logic to say, okay, most likely if you say this, it's a good idea. Most likely if you say this, it's a bad idea, etc., etc., etc. And the other reason why it's confusing is because you cannot, per se, evaluate yourself or know exactly where you are in the spectrum. Unlike in the MCAT, where, for example, you do a mock MCAT and you get a good or a bad score. With the interview, you don't know exactly where you are landing. So that's another difficulty with all the interviews for medical schools. Now, let's talk about how can we make this a little bit less confusing. The idea here is that you have to reflect on how you are getting marked. Obviously, no one knows the answer, but when we use our logic, there are a couple options that are most likely. The first option here is that you could be marked based on your overall answer. So, is your overall answer good, bad? Is it holistically speaking a good answer or not? That's the first option. Second option, this option have some weaknesses. If I was in admission, is that there's a lot of randomness between individuals. Someone might be an easy marker, give a lot of good marks. Someone might be a bad marker, right? So there's a lot of randomness in that. The second option, which is very likely, is that it could be based on a rubric. What does that mean is that there are specific points you have to mention, specific benchmarks, that when you mention them, you get points. So that's the other option. A third option now that could be a possibility is an AI where an AI mark you, and then we ask ourselves, does an AI follow a rubric or does it mark your answer holistically? And it also could be a mix of all those points. There could be like some statistics going on, there's some formula they follow. Whatever it is, we don't know. But when we are answering, when we are practicing, it's very important to try to come up with an answer that you will do well regardless of how they mark you. So what does that mean? Our answer, a good answer, is an answer that holistically, when you look at it holistically, it's good answer. But also, it's very important to try to pinpoint as many points in a rubric kind of sense. So you try to mention the buzzwords, try to mention the main words as much as you can. Okay, so hopefully this can provide you with some guide into what is a good answer. Okay, the reason why I'm explaining this is because you will need to try to come up with some formula to evaluate yourself and to guide yourself when you are answering the questions, and hopefully this helps with that. Now, let's move a little bit forward. Is it? Yeah. Okay. let's move a little bit forward and talking about how could they mark you. So probably all of you have seen this. This is from the University of Toronto admissions website, which talks about the clusters they are looking for and the attributes they are looking for in their applicants. And this is basically gonna be one of the most important tools if I was you, I would use to prepare for the for the interview, because this hopefully could be a guide for you. Try in your answer, try to as much as you can to include as many as of those as you can, and I will explain and I will give an example on how to do that. That's the hard part. That's the part that no one knows. Obviously, we all know that we have to try to pinpoint as many of those, but how can we do that? Hopefully, this is something we will discuss in this lecture for a little bit, and then in other lectures as well. Now, another thing that could really help guide um, your learning is old essays from the University of Toronto. So there is a website that's linked to this QR code, and this website have all the old essays that the UofT have done in their admission school or in their admission process, and it's very helpful for you to read over those questions and to try to come up with MMI questions, or sorry, interview questions from those essay questions. Try to come up with main themes, for example. Okay, try to reflect on how you'd answer those old essay questions. Hopefully, this could help you with having an idea and a perspective on what they usually look for and what they are expecting, right? So, hopefully, the old essays could be a huge, huge asset for you in improving your performance in the interview. All right. Now, when we practice, I think it's important to keep things organized. So, I want you to divide your practice into four main aspects. Okay, the first part is to practice as in a real interview. So you time yourself 3 minutes and then 5 minutes, exactly like it's a real interview. You record yourself and all of that. So that's called real practice. And this practice part is extremely important because this is where you apply all the things you learned. And you should take this one very, very seriously, because the habits you develop during those practice sessions will be translated to your actual into your actual interview. For example, the way you sit, the way you talk, the confidence you have, all those are things that move with you and build your image, your own image on yourself also builds. Now, the second part is the feedback and reflection, and I believe this is where a lot of the learning happens. So once you answer a question, like in part one here, once you answer a question, you now go back into that question after you're done and try to go come up with as many ways as possible to incorporate the clusters. So you go over the question and ask yourself, okay, how could I have talked about maturity? How could I have talked about reliability? How could I have talked about perseverance? Try to really think, try to really come up with different things to say, different points to say. How could I have incorporated advocacy into that question? How could I have incorporated social responsibility into that question? So you try your best to really reflect on how to improve, where did you go wrong, all of that. So that's the second part. Now, the third part is learning from others, and this is also extremely valuable. Listen to other people, you learn from them because you have certain things to offer. Someone else might have a different set of things as well. And you could learn a lot from listening to old people. Like literally you could be going around collecting the same way people go around collecting big Pokemons, you go around collecting points to talk about, skills that you learn, etc. Um, very, very important. And I know it's easier said than done, but please don't be a lone wolf. Don't think of the other interviewees as your competitor, but rather think of them as allies. Because while you are thinking of them as competitors and trying to not help them, and they will not help you, there are groups out there that are making allies, going together and learning together and improving together, and those people are gonna improve much faster compared to a lone wolf that's going by himself or herself. So it's very important to keep the idea that you want to be allies with people rather than competitors with them. Now, finally, it's very important, and the fourth point here is the research and developing knowledge and self-reflection. For example, this video would fall under the fourth point, right? You are watching a video to learn more about those things. You can watch videos about uh, recent news and recent topics in medicine, etc. And self-reflection is extremely important. Once you do like a question, I really recommend you to write down in one place all your notes. It could be even like a WhatsApp group chat with yourself only, right? Or it could be like a Google Doc where you write down the question you made, and the feedback for yourself, points you could talk about, stories you could talk about, all the things, something good you heard from someone else. Just put everything in one place, and then always go back through this document, read through your mistakes, read through things you learned, so you don't forget them. So you start to incorporate them, because you might say, "Oh no, I should have said this," and then you don't write it anywhere, you'll forget it. But if you write it down and then you go over and over it again, you will learn. So divide your practice into four of these. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. So I made a quick and humble practice template, and this practice template is something you can use when you are doing the actual in during the 3 minutes, for example, or even after the 3 minutes when you are doing the reflection on yourself. Maybe that I can. Well, it's not here. It's just a practice template that's based off the clusters. Nothing too fancy, to be honest with you, but I believe it could help you, and it could having your own practice template could get you a long way as well. Now, that being said, I want to highlight a very, very important point here, is that it's your responsibility to highlight yourself, to sell yourself in a sense to the interviewer. So some people, you might use your 5 minutes, you might answer a lot of points, mention a lot of points, but at the end of the 5 minutes, if the interviewer is still like they cannot tell, are you going to be a good doctor or not? Maybe you did not talk a lot about yourself. Maybe you just focused on answering the question, right? So it's your responsibility to try to put yourself in the answer. Please remember that the answer to your question is the mean, not the goal. The goal is to make the interviewer feel confident that you'll be a great doctor, and this speaks about the holistic part of your answer. Um, Sometimes sharing a personal example, sometimes the way you talk, the way you react to something could be the material, the main material in your answer. So always keep this idea in mind. You are trying to put yourself in the question. You are trying to put yourself in the answer. Okay. Now here's an example of a question, and I will answer it. And while I'm answering it, I will try my best to hit on as many of the clusters as possible. Now I'll time myself as well here on my phone for hopefully 5 minutes so that I am still within the time limit. Okay. Maybe I'll give myself 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So 5 minutes for me to think as well. Okay. 5 minute, 30 second. You don't skip the next 30 second, but maybe spend the 30 seconds as well thinking with me how you would answer this question. Hello, thank you for interviewing me today. So in this situation, I think it's first step that I would do is assessing any danger or any risk that I could be or anyone in the surrounding could be. For example, are there any guns involved? Are there any weapons involved? Does the environment is the environment safe for me? For example, I would act differently if that happened at 2 a.m. in a dark alley compared to it happening in a public bus station. So it's I need to assess my surrounding and assess for danger on myself and on the homeless woman involved and on any bus buyers as well. If there was a high risk, then I want to call the police. If not, then I want to approach the homeless lady. I want to firstly apologize to what happened, maybe offer her a napkin to clean the blood, and I want to look for any other injuries that could be there. Maybe I missed an important injury that she is not aware of. Maybe the bleeding is from an internal bleeding in her skull, for example. Maybe there's another fracture she's not feeling. So it's very important for me to ask and to make sure she is in a good health. And if she needs medical attention, then that will be my next step to call the ambulance. However, if she was all right, then firstly, maybe I want to offer to take her to a more comfortable place, maybe to a close coffee place that maybe can buy her some hot coffee that she can drink. Because think about how the weather is outside. It could be very cold and there might be a lot of snow. Maybe she's dirty. So it's very important to try to take her to a place that's more comfortable where there's less people. Or and also to minimize the risk of the two girls coming back to hit her more or to interact with her more. So hopefully maybe another coffee place could help with that. Now, I also want to highlight the importance of self-reflection. For example, this situation, how am I feeling? Am I angry? Am I scared? Maybe. So it's very important to reflect on myself and reflect on my emotions and not let my emotions guide my actions, but rather I need to think twice before taking any step in this situation. Now, I believe that it's very important to try to solve this problem from the roots. Even if we took her to a different spot, that does not mean that the situation is resolved. There is very high likely that the two girls will come again to hit her. So I want to ask the homeless lady what happened. And there are a lot of possible scenarios. Maybe the homeless lady stole something from them and they were coming to retrieve it. Or maybe it is a bullying incident where this happens for a very long period of time, and if that was the case, then I want to show empathy because it's definitely very, very hard situation to be in. I can't even imagine, a homeless person struggles to find food for the day, struggles to find shelter for the day, and on top of that, now they are worried about their safety and being attacked by other individuals. So it's definitely a very hard situation that homeless lady is in. So I think if I could, I would try to maybe connect the homeless lady or the homeless woman with a shelter, maybe with a social worker. I want to try to connect her with professional help that could guide her through those difficult times. Now, I want to speak about the importance of interfering in those situations. It could be some people might be worried or scared to interfere because things might go wrong in many different ways. And I understand that perspective, but I also wanna reflect on how it will feel if there were 10 people, for example, seeing what happened and none of them did anything. This would be very hard for that homeless woman because she'll feel like no one want to help her, and this might be a very depressing moment for her. Finally, I want to reflect with on a personal experience. For I started a university club when I was in my undergrad, and it was focused on humanitarian work. It was called the Emma Club, and one of our projects was making 100 winter packages for the homeless. The winter packages had a lot of different stuff: toothpaste, toothbrushes, toques, gloves, socks, all of that. And our initiative was to give them to the homeless people, and we did that in at the start of the winter, and it was very, very heartbreaking to see a lot of homeless people staying in -15 and -20 without even tools, without even gloves. And doing that really showed me how hard it is out there and the importance of intervening to help the homeless population. I see we're running out of time here. It was really a pleasure to speak with you. Have a good day. So I did stutter a little bit here and there, but this is my humble attempt to try to get as many of the uh, of the clusters as I could. Obviously, I believe the hardest one to get to is the scholar one because it's in most questions it's hard to push in there and to find a way. But once you learn a couple tricks, those tricks will be effective in almost every station. So here is that. Now, here are some important things to consider as well when you are when you are answering those interview questions. The first thing is power dynamics. If there is power dynamics because a lot of those interview questions have power dynamics, and if there is a power dynamic, then you have to acknowledge it. You should not ignore it and act like you don't care, because in reality, it can have a lot of consequences. So you want to show maturity by assessing the consequences of each action and assessing the consequences of the power dynamic on the situation, and you want to try your best to find alternatives. For example, if there was, like, there's a researcher and you are a student under the supervisor, for example, then maybe instead of reporting the research yourself, maybe you want to try to find anonymous reporting, for example, or maybe try to speak to a third individual who could be more senior than you, that could handle the situation better than you. So you want to try to find alternatives, and we can talk a lot about that, but for the sake of time, I'll keep it short here. Emotional intelligence, and I believe this is a very, very powerful tool that could really make you stand out, because remember, every single applicant will use the 5 minutes. Every single applicant will mention the main points. So you want to try to find every single way to make an advantage for yourself, and emotional intelligence is one of the ways to do so. So every time during the 3 minutes when you are thinking, you have to ask yourself, okay, what are the emotions involved in this situation? Okay. Is there fear? Is there frustration? Is there anger? Is there sadness? Is there happiness? Right. So it's very important to think about the emotions involved, and then you want to ask yourself, okay, how do I best handle those emotions? If you are a doctor, you do not handle an angry patient the same way you handle a sad patient, correct? So you want to show this to the interviewer, and this is how you show emotional intelligence. Another thing that could really get you far in the answer is self-reflection. So every time you want to ask, when you are in a situational question or something like that, you want to show a component of self-reflection. How are your emotions going? What emotions you are going through, for example? How did you handle the situation? What biases do you have? All those are important questions that if you show the interviewer, you can reflect on them. It could actually be a very powerful tool to you as well. And finally, I want to share with you one of the easiest way to incorporate emotions into your answer, which is the very golden phrase, I cannot even imagine. So you can say, I cannot even imagine if I was homeless and I had to struggle to find food for the day. I had to struggle to find shelter to protect me from the cold. And on top of that, I'm now concerned about my safety because some other people are trying to harm me, right? So it shows that you can put yourself in other people's shoes and shows that you have empathy. Finally, personal experience, and it's a big, big point here. Uh, it's one of the, like, when you look at the scholar points, most of them you can only hit them through a personal experience. So you want to try to come up with a lot of those personal experiences and learn how to narrate them well. Learn how to be a good storyteller. I'm sure we all have been through with that one friend who is telling you a story and it's such a boring story because he just gets stuck on all the minor details and like, okay, what was the name of the street again? I can't remember. Well, who cares about the name of the street? Same thing with the personal experiences in the interview. You only have 5 minutes. You need to learn how to say those stories very, very quickly, very concisely, and very effectively, so the interviewer can understand them without you wasting time, and with you highlighting the strong points of the story and minimizing or removing anything that could be just extra information. And then to really come up with stories for yourself. Think of hard times you have been through. Think of tangents in your life. Think of mistakes you have made. Think of challenges you have been through. I believe that those could make for the best stories. It's not stories that you have been, part of this group or part of this volunteering or in that position. Yeah, those could make for stories, but I believe the best stories is like when something crazy happened in your life and it was completely out of control, it completely unplanned. I think those also make for great, great stories that usually people miss or forget. If you have a health condition, it could be a great story. If you immigrated to Canada, it could be a great story, etc. Finally, and this is the last slide here, is think of the extremes. So this is one of the ways to show that you have deep insight, that you are mature and you're responsible. For example, if everything goes wrong, how would that look like? For example, someone is cheating. Do you report them or not report them? Well, what if they cheat and then they pass because they kept cheating and now they are in the career? Now, because of that, they cannot do their job properly. Maybe they could harm someone, maybe they fall into legal problems, maybe they could fall into huge financial problems because of that. Maybe they cannot find a job. Even the credibility of the career could be impacted because certain individuals in that career don't know how to do their work. Even the credibility of the university who produced those individuals could be damaged if people see that, people are graduating by cheating, people are graduating without knowing the basics. They will start to question the credibility of that degree and that institution. And even the professors who teach those individuals, their credibility will be impacted. So, you see how I'm trying to really expand and see all the damage and all the consequences of a certain action by thinking of the extremes. Now, this is it for the first part. Um, the other parts focus on specific skills and then expanding them. It focus on the clusters and going through each one of them and trying to find ways to incorporate it effectively into your answer. This is something that takes some time to do, right? And then we focus on other skills that you need to learn in the interview and all of that. Well, thank you very much. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, see you around. Take care.